Cannabis Common Sense, the show that tells the truth about marijuana and the politics behind its prohibition.
Hello and welcome to another exciting edition of Cannabis Common Sense. Our show tonight features a guest from Florida, Dave Edmonds with Hemp for Water at hempforwater, the digit 4, .org. He'll be talking about how he's using hemp cannabis to pull nitrogen and phosphate out of Florida's groundwater. It's causing a lot of problems, like it does off the coast of Oregon here. So stay tuned for that. We have a great hemp news segment. First, we're going to bring out our infamous dancing cannabis leaves.
I feel the force.
Okay, our first story tonight is from America in general. 88% of Americans say that marijuana ought to be legal for either medical or adult use, according to nationwide polling data from the Pew Research Center. The results are consistent with those of prior Pew polls, finding that only about 10% of U.S. adults support a blanket policy of cannabis criminalization anymore. 24 states have legalized marijuana for adult use, and 38 states regulate medical cannabis access to qualified patients. There's no buyer's remorse among the public when it comes to legalizing cannabis. As more states have adopted legalization, public support for this policy has risen dramatically. That's because these policies are largely working as intended, and because voters prefer legalization and regulation over the failed policy of cannabis prohibition. Elected officials who refuse to take action in cannabis criminalization do so at their own peril. 57% of respondents said that cannabis should be legal for both medical and adult use, while 32% of those surveyed supported medical marijuana legalization only. Consistent with prior polls, support for legalizing cannabis was strongest among Democrats and younger voters. In particular, 42% of Republicans said that legalizing marijuana leads to the use of other drugs like heroin and cocaine, whereas fewer than 1 in 5 Democrats believe the so-called gateway theory. According to a 2021 study published by the National Bureau of Economic Research, there exists little compelling evidence to suggest that recreational marijuana laws result in increases in illicit drug use, drug-involved overdoses, or drug-related treatment admissions for addiction. End quote. Government researchers surveyed up in Canada surveyed over 56,000 participants aged 16 or older in marijuana use. Investigators assessed year-over-year trends in the subject's cannabis use since 2018. The Canadian government began permitting retail marijuana sales to those 18 and older that fall. Consistent with other data, researchers reported that the percentage of respondents who acknowledge obtaining cannabis from legal sources is steadily increasing. In 2019, the first full year of legalization, only 37% of respondents reporting buying cannabis from legal sources. That percentage increased to 69% in 2022, and only 4% of respondents in 2022 reported purchasing cannabis from the unregulated marketplace. U.S. data similarly reports that a growing percentage of consumers are transitioning to the legal marketplace. According to a 2023 survey, 52% of consumers residing in legal states said they primarily source their cannabis products from brick and mortar establishments. By contrast, only 6% of respondents said they primarily purchase cannabis from a dealer. Many consumers residing in non-legal states also reported that they frequently travel to neighboring legal states to purchase cannabis products and return home with them afterwards. In Oregon, our busiest dispensaries are on the Idaho border. These data indicate that the legal regulated cannabis market is displacing the underground market. Over time, consumers are becoming more comfortable and reliant upon licensed retailers who typically offer greater convenience, product quality, and safety. A couple stories from Germany. In Germany, legislation permitting the personal possession and home cultivation of limited amounts of cannabis cleared its final parliamentary hurdle last week. Members of Germany's parliament's upper house gave their approval to the measure. The vote followed approval from the lower chamber in February. The measure allows residents age 18 and older to possess up to 25 grams and home cultivate cannabis up to 3 plants per adult, beginning on April 1st. Not-for-profit cannabis clubs will be permitted to grow and provide cannabis for their members beginning on July 1st. Neither commercial cannabis production, retail sales, nor marijuana-related advertising is permitted under this measure. Marijuana sales to minors will also remain strictly prohibited, with offenders facing penalties of up to 2 years imprisonment. Last year, similar legislation took effect in the European nation of Luxembourg. That followed a similar move in 2021 by lawmakers on the island of Malta. German lawmakers previously approved the limited use of medical cannabis products in 2017. And in a study out of Mannheim, Germany, nearly 60% of people undergoing opioid maintenance treatment use cannabis to reduce their cravings for other drugs, including heroin, according to survey data published in the journal European Archives of Psychiatry and Clinical Neuroscience. German investigators assessed cannabis use trends in 118 subjects enrolled in maintenance therapy. 57% of the respondents acknowledged consuming herbal cannabis despite its use being a violation of the program's rule. The study's authors concluded, quote, a substantial proportion of patients using cannabis in our sample reported beneficial effects of cannabis use on cravings for and use of other drugs, in many cases arguably more harmful substances. These results question whether restricting cannabis use in general really promotes health in these patients. Overall, our results suggest that cannabis should be considered as a strategy for harm reduction in maintenance of patients with the goal to reduce use of more dangerous drugs, end quote. The results of a 2021 study concluded that those in treatment for opioid use disorder who used cannabis were less likely to suffer from non-fatal opioid overdose than were non-cannabis consumers. Other studies reported that cannabis use is associated with greater opioid treatment retention rates and that it may mitigate opioid-related cravings among dependent subjects. This study, Does Cannabis Use Substitute for Opioids? A preliminary exploratory survey of opioid maintenance, appears in the European Archives of Psychiatry and Clinical Neuroscience. I have a collection of cannabis containers that are antiques, and many of them say they're for people that were habituates of opioid, chloroform, cocaine, and alcohol. So it's been used to help people get off these other drugs for hundreds of years. Out of Oklahoma City, cannabis sold in medical dispensaries in Oklahoma frequently contains lower quantities of THC than are advertised on the product's label. An independent laboratory analysis of 15 varieties of cannabis flowers obtained at 3 dispensaries identified discrepancies between the product label and their THC content. In each instance, the product's advertised THC potency was inflated. The average reported THC of these strains tested is about 24%, but the average measured THC numbers was just over 14%. Results from the lab analysis were provided to the Oklahoma Medical Marijuana Authority. The agency indicates it's in the process of improving lab testing standards and regulations. Oklahoma voters in 2018 approved a statewide ballot initiative permitting the licensed production and retail sale of cannabis for those with a physician's authorization. The state currently has more licensed cannabis businesses per capita than any other medical-only jurisdiction. Lab analysis of certain cannabis products sold in other states, including California, Colorado, and Washington State, have identified similar incidences of THC inflation. A recent analysis in the Journal of Cannabis Research of 107 flower samples obtained in California, Colorado, and Oregon reported that nearly 70% of the products overlabeled the THC content. However, the authors did not specify whether the samples came from state licensed or unlicensed retailers. The study, Evaluation of Dispensaries' Cannabis Flowers for Accuracy of Labeling Cannabinoid Content, appears in the Journal of Cannabis Research. And this is our last story tonight from Washington State. Legislation, HB 1453, was signed into law by Democratic Governor Jay Inslee and provides a tax break for medical marijuana patients who purchase certain cannabis products. Under the new law, patients registered in the state's voluntary medical cannabis access program are exempt from the state's 37% excise tax when the purchase designated products. The exemption only applies to products designated Department of Health compliant. DOH compliant products have undergone more rigorous safety testing than is typically required under state law. Most states minimize patients' tax burdens when purchasing medical cannabis products. Washington legalized medical marijuana access in 1998. State voters approved an initiative legalizing the adult use marijuana market in 2012. That is the end of our Hemp News segment tonight. If you or a loved one are looking for help finding a doctor who can recommend medical marijuana, give us a call. We have a referral service for doctors all over the country. Call us at 503-235-4606. That's 503-235-4606. Thanks for watching and help us restore hemp. Good night. I'd like to introduce Steve Edmonds in Florida with hempforwater.org. That's the digit 4, not the word, hempforwater.org. Steve, you have been working with industrial hemp to clean up phosphates and the water there in Florida, which is a critical resource everywhere. But the way it flows in Florida to protect the Everglades and the swamps is unique.
Definitely, it's one of the most unique ecosystems in the world, as a matter of fact, including having one of the few rivers that run opposite of the equator in the St. Johns, which is kind of in the area that I live in. But yeah, I mean the entire state is a giant is a giant grass filter, if you will, that's supposed to be moving at a very slow pace that we've decided to develop as much as we possibly can without any regard to the impact, long or short term. So basically what we're fighting, or what Hemp for Water is all about, or how we got going, was way back in 2013. Friends of mine from Stuart, Florida — I grew up in Stuart — gave me a call and said, "Hey, listen, we're having some horrible problems with algae blooms and this, that, and the other, and the discharges that are coming out of Lake Okeechobee. Well, they're just destroying our coastline and destroying our marine economy and ecosystem." And we started looking at what the problem was, despite where everybody was pointing fingers. And lo and behold, we found out, hey, guess what? It's everybody's fault. Imagine that.
Wash clothes, take a bath, wash car, I mean, use soap.
It's everywhere, right? And it's feed your lawn, feed it, and it's the industrial farmers, and it's the urban scape that's got way too many cars running up and down our highways. Basically, it's an infrastructure built for 4 million people that's kicking 23 million in population, and it's behind and cannot keep up with what's going on. So what I was looking at, me and my cohorts that founded Hemp for Water and came up with the idea, it actually was myself and Captain Don Voss. Captain Don Voss has unfortunately passed on and is hanging out someplace else. But he and I came up with the idea, and I've been kind of shepherding it since 2014. And we have been, for the last 4 years, in heavy research proving that hemp is the most effective way to extract nitrogen and phosphorus from freshwater bodies. And we're doing excellent work and able to reproduce our research level projects at R99 values and showing that we're being able to extract out of sample volumes and containers of over 50% of the nitrogen and the phosphorus that's in the samples. And we expect the same kind of performance, even possibly better in live trials. So where we're at right now is we have a state that's allocated $25 million plus another $100 million plus this, plus that, plus this, to go after this problem. And they have selectively awarded some monies and some projects here and there to things that frankly are not addressing the problem. One is a chemical solution that basically binds with the nitrogen and phosphorus and falls to the bottom and sits there for an indeterminate amount of time. That's what they're spending $10 million a month on the Piney Point project, trying to abate that emergency problem. And the other is harvesting the algae after the fact. Big water tractors going through and collecting the algae and then doing stuff with it, which is great. And I'm all about it, once the algae occurs, but I would really like to prevent it from occurring in the first place, because once it occurs, we've got a whole cascade of problems that we have to deal with from there that in 2014 alone equated to billions of dollars in repair, 3 point something on the East Coast and 2 point something on the West Coast.
Tell me what the impacts are with excess nitrogen and phosphate in the water, and how that's bad for the environment and ecosystem. And
okay, so these are nutrients that are good for all ecosystems and essential for all life, really. But like anything else, if you have an overabundance, it causes a problem. And imagine, if you will, a home aquarium, right? You've got your fish tank and everything's good, but oh man, you drop too many pinches of food into the water, and you've got too much food in the water, and there's really no way to get it out, and now you're stuck, because now it's in the ecosystem and it's going to go through the filters and it's going to create this, and in a week or two you're going to have an algae bloom, and that algae bloom is going to kill everything in your tank, and there's not really much you can do about it, unless you of course employ chemicals and this, that, and the other, and you get proactive about it. Well, the same thing's happening on a massive scale naturally, is that when the homeostasis of the water body comes out of whack, what occurs is that this overabundance of nutrients, this too much food, creates a massive and very quick super bloom of algae, and then that algae coats everything and kills everything off and sucks up all of the resources for itself, depriving the entire rest of the ecosystem of what it needs to function properly. And then of course you have the added extra problem of the cleanup, the rot, the smell, and then if you get into the brackish areas, you could end up with a blue-green algae, which can potentially be deadly. It creates what's called cyanobacteria, and has indeed killed dozens of people in Florida over the last decade or so, just from being exposed to the toxins that are released from these algae.
We have an issue with that off the coast of Oregon in terms of oxygen deprivation off the coast caused by just that sort of runoff from the commercial forests and ag lands.
Right, and I'll hazard to say it's probably also suburbia and urban addition and contribution to that problem too, Paul. And that's one of the things that I've been trying to educate people on, is we spend way too much time blaming folks for the problems that we have to fix. And really, if we could work with these industrial agricultural interests, for Florida, we're talking about Big Sugar and Mosaic in the phosphate mining companies. If we could work with those two companies and marshal and leverage their vast political and monetary resources, then we might actually be able to fix something. We might actually be able to, get the problem done. and work on something instead of, fighting with each other. Maybe we can put an olive branch out there and see if they want to clean up the mess. At least that's what I've been experiencing in Florida, and the environmental movement in Florida is kind of disappointing because all they really want to do is point fingers and blame everybody else and collect donations, and not really fix the problem. And that's part of, what I was putting out there with I'm looking for investigative journalists, because we have proven scientific data that shows that if we scale up, which is relatively low in cost compared to these $10 million a month being spent on chemical solutions, and God knows what they're spending on the harvesting solutions, we can scale up for way less than what's going on there and may have a major impact. And we've proven it scientifically time and time again for months and months and months of data collection. And the politicians and the decision makers are running in the opposite direction. And the excuse that they're putting on is, oh, well, we don't like the plant, we don't like the word hemp, which I would have gotten 10 years ago, because I've been in the activist game for 30 years as well. The first time I spoke on industrial hemp was in 1991. And my inspiration for that was Jack and Emperor Wears No Clothes and all of that. So
I just have to
I've
say,
been
that Jack wrote the first edition of that book in my house here in Portland, Oregon.
I am aware of that, and that's again, I'm humbled
40 years later, but there you have it.
It's awesome, and Bruce and I, the guy with the car that helped fund the fourth electronic edition just recently, Bruce Dietzen, he and I have hooked up a few times here in Florida and worked on a few different things together. Another excellent hemp warrior out there, so I try and associate with the real deal. So the idea for hemp for water was partly from some of the stuff that I got from Emperor Wears No Clothes and the references to the ancient civilizations and what the Mayans and the Aztecs and I researched and found out the Byzantines and the Mesopotamians, they all did floating islands to abate their sewage dumps and sewage areas, which is basically what we're trying to do, is deal with excess nutrients. So the floating mat idea, I wish I could say, hey, this was my original idea, but no, it's not. It is my idea to employ it and to make it work modern in modern.
Have you ever been to Mexico City, to Xochimilco? It's the place in Mexico City where they take these very colorful boats out there and float around, and there's a couple different cannabis events that happen out there on those islands as well.
That's awesome. I'd like to attend one time. Like I said, other than in books, I haven't had the opportunity to get there yet. I'll say yet. So I look forward to seeing some of that first.
We're talking about these floating mats in the lake that used to be the Aztec capital before Spanish conquistadors came in and destroyed that and built Catholic churches and solidified the land. But it's still a place where people in Mexico City go out for weddings and parties. Xochimilco. So,
yeah. Very cool. Very cool. So the concept is fully proven from ancient times until now, and it seems like the powers to be would rather be petrified of a plant than actually fix the problem, because hemp can fix the problem. It absolutely can, and it's just a matter of how many mats and how many plants we put on the water. And everybody's like, oh, well, I don't want to see a bunch of plants and mats floating all over the water. Well, okay, deal with the fish kill and all sorts of billions of dollars of rehabbing from it. But the logic is really kind of obtuse, to say the least. And what we could be doing with this is at scale amazing things. I mean, we could do Sandy Bottom, bring back the best, store only without intrusive kinds of islands everywhere. You don't need to cover the entire surface area of the lake to fix it. You're talking about polka dotting a lake with things that people will be lucky if they see, because we'll put them in places that aren't obvious, right? Because we don't want people poking around or thinking that this is something that they should try and steal and smoke or any of that kind of nonsense. But we will have solar lights on the mats that will keep the plants in veg, so that we don't have to worry about propagation or people wanting to come after buds or any of that kind of stuff. It'll be a matter of maintaining them for 60 to 90 days, then pulling them off the mats and harvesting the plant material, putting new clones in, and sending them back out to do their job. We'll take the plant material at first and turn it into fertilizer, and then as we scale up with the industrial possibilities, but animal bedding, building materials, and so forth.
I see. So if someone's interested in contacting you about your organization, do you have a website? You must, because I mentioned the URL up
Yes.
the top.
Yes, yeah, it's www.hemp, the number 4, that's the digit as you pointed out, water, water.org, hempforwater.org. And if you'd like to call me directly, you can give me a ring at 407-701-9045. I'm old school. It's the best way to get in touch with me. If you send me an email, I'll catch up with you in a few days. And that's Steve at hempforwater.org.
Okay. Tell me more about how you came to start Hemp for Water. What was your impetus, and tell me some of the startup issues you've dealt with. You're still in startup, really, but
yeah, I'm in research, really, and I'm trying to make that jump to the next level and get the funding to go to the next level, get off the bench, if you will. So we started in 2013 with the idea, while we were bemoaning, the destruction of the St. Lucie River and the Indian River Lagoon. Basically, we were sitting back, medicating, relaxing with a joint, and we were like, man, this is really good stuff. And talking about the guy who's grown it, and said, you know what, he's using a lot of nitrogen. He's using a lot of these nutrients that we're worried about. Because we had just discovered what was causing, the real problem with the algae blooms was the excess nitrogen and phosphorus that was, pushing that whole cycle. And we're like, well, what if we could do something about the nitrogen and phosphorus? How do we get at suspended nitrogen and phosphorus in fresh water? Well, like I said, there's some chemical people out there, and there's some people that can harvest after the fact. But nobody's been really concentrating on how to just remove the nutrients. And I had the idea and remembered the reference of the Aztecs and the ancient civilization. I said, well, why wouldn't we be able to use hemp? Because we know growers that are spending an awful lot of money that hydroponically grow to and add these nutrients to their hydroponics. Yeah. So why wouldn't this work? And as soon as I mention it to any of the OG growers or anything else, they're like, of course it's going to work. We had floating things in pickle buckets, out in Lake Okeechobee in the swamps 20 years ago. It's definitely going to work. Go do it.
Well, I hadn't heard that before. They've been growing hydroponically in the swamps. That's neat. Of course.
Oh yeah. Yeah, they used to run platforms up in the trees and then wick ropes from the water down to so that they could set the platforms in the trees and wick the water. Plants would take it as they needed it, and they wouldn't have to check on them for weeks. That was some some guerrilla grow tactics in the swamps. You know, you had to put them up in the trees, otherwise the animals would trample the plants.
Very
right?
first time,
Another.
the very first time that I tried Sinsemilla, I was in Florida. A friend of mine had moved to Orlando, and I went down and had Gainesville Green. We're talking about 1978 or 79 or something. And
You had the real Gainesville Green, not the pirated hijack crap that they're talking about these days.
probably so. I mean, it's what they called it back then, and it's the first time I had tried Sinsemilla. And
yeah,
it was.
We could grow some mean Sinsemilla down here. That's for sure. Some of the best bud I've ever smoked in my life has been outdoor bud from right here at home, and it'll get you.
And then it rains every afternoon almost, right?
Yep, and you have to have, there's only certain cultivars and strains can't deal with the amount of wetness. And everybody told me, I had, one of my biggest critics was out of Colorado, and I hope that I've silenced him by now. But Richard Rose was quite a pain in my ass when I started out, telling me how, I can't grow hemp, this, that, and the other. And I was telling him, look, I've already done it. So you worry about what you do, and I'll worry about what I do. But the truth is that, 60 to 70% of the plants that we try don't like the environment or the situation at all, and you have to find the right phenotypes that will deal with wet feet and very, very humid conditions, and handle the stress of that. And then, of course, once we get out of research phase and we get into commercial phase, we're going to have to worry about, the plants going hot too, which, as you know, one of the biggest the defense mechanisms of the plant, regardless if you're talking hemp or cannabis or whatever, it's all the same stuff, is that THC gets produced when they're in fight mode, and survival mode. So once we are at a commercial scalable thing, the state of Florida is going to be worried about whether or not we're over that threshold, which is, unfortunate and, kind of another big pain in the ass that it shouldn't have to worry about, but gonna have to.
If you're harvesting before they go into flower, that should negate a lot of the issues with THC.
Exactly. Exactly. And that's and again, we're gonna be under solar lights to make sure that we stay in veg. We've already, again, done this at research level and know that we can do it. It's not a problem. So it's a matter of getting the funding to scale up, to create the right vessels to hold the mats, to do more than just, be protective of elements of wildlife. Do some data collection, do some moving around, do some more proactive scientific work while we're out there anyway, right? And also be able to kind of automate it to a bit so that these things turn into, remote control boats, basically, that I can bring back to the dock instead of having to take a John boat out to service them. That's the long-term kind of idea and vision on how we scale. And I'd love to work with, golf course associations and homeowners associations. I'm not about pointing fingers. I'm about fixing the problems. And I'd love to go right to the root of where these things are starting to bubble up and fix them before they become a problem.
Yeah, growing green grass is, then the fertilizer that goes on it, I know, is a big part of that. Tell me, what kind of funding you're in the research phase now. Have you got a business plan in terms of how much funding you need to get into testing your theory and then commercial?
It'll depend on the project, really. So we're kind of right now either looking for a company that has an idea that they want to partner with a 501c3 to do some positive work in the environment, in which case we'll work on projects that they identify most likely, or we're going after projects that the state or the feds have identified and working with veterans groups to partner with them to try and go after, we need to clean up this lake, we need to clean up that lake. And then the other option that we're currently working on is going after grants, local, state, federal, to just get to wherever we can. And to answer your question, funding is ranging from, whoa, that
Uh-oh.
my little stand there fell. Funding is ranging from you know $20,000 for research kind of equipment to continue where we're at this level, which we just got a $20,000 grant match from Duke Energy with the school, which thank you for that,
Wow.
Duke. Well, it's going to the school, and the school's helping with us. We're also partnered up with Microsoft and PayPal under their 501c3 programs. Microsoft's program is Benevity. So anybody that donates through those, Microsoft matches on that as well. So that's very helpful. We are in process of applying for some of those larger federal grants. In order to go after a small lake, we'll say something that's 10 to 100 acre lake, right? For a 3 to 5 year project, we need to be funded at about 250 to 500,000.
That's not that much and how long have you had your 501c3 status? Uh-oh.
Oh, 501c3, we incorporated in 2017 regularly, and then started applying and received our 501c3 status in 2019. So we're federally designated as a 501c3, and we are recognized as a Florida nonprofit. So that's kind of, we're looking to partner with municipalities, counties, states, the federal government. We're not necessarily restricted to Florida at all, but that just happens to be where I am and where I'm starting. So if anybody's got any great ideas anywhere else in the country or anywhere else in the world, for that matter, we're certainly open to talking. We're currently in talks, preliminary talks, with a group in South Africa. So that would be kind of neat to get some global impact as well.
So I know Florida has a complicated history with medical marijuana. Marijuana has been a serious crime there. Hemp is now legal federally. I remember a few years ago, there was a vote for medical marijuana that got over 50%, but it needed to get 60% to be implemented. But they came back, I think, in the following cycle and got that 60% to start to implement medical marijuana. And I think you have referred to it as the cartel. They have to tell me about that.
Yeah, it's a really expensive pay-to-play system. And there's rumors that these folks are responsible for the most recent hemp legislation, which is a nightmare. And it depends on your perspective and where you're coming from. But basically, it's a very expensive application. I think it's $250,000 non-refundable that you pay to the state of Florida, plus all of your legal fees. Plus, you have to be liquid for 2.5 years for everything that's listed in your business plan. You have to be able to pay cash for 2.5 years for everything that you outlay from seed to sale. And we are a vertical system, meaning that your license covers you from seed to sale, and you must provide from seed to sale. So that means you had to have at least one farm and one dispensary and everything in between in order to even apply for. And the state of Florida hasn't been releasing too many single operating licenses out there. So
how many are there? Do you know?
Currently, I believe there's 22 in the hopper waiting to be issued. And there's a controversy with black farmers that has to be resolved before those can be let go. And I think there's 16, and I'd have to check on that. I think that there's 16 that are currently awarded and operational, 4 of which aren't actually providing for the public yet. They're still in their build up and build out stage.
Just medical marijuana, not recreational.
Recreational is not legal in the state of Florida. If you do not have your medical card and you have cannabis in your possession that's over 0.3% THC, you will face a wide variety of policy and potential punishment, depending on the county that you're in. Really, will depend on what happens to you. If you're in Polk County, you're probably going to jail for a joint. If you're in Orange County, you might get a ticket to pay in the mail. You know, depends on the county, depends on the law enforcement officer. For the most part, hemp has been accepted and legal since we implemented it in 2019 at the state level, following the Farm Act of 18. And it has been an absolute uphill battle from the word go, trying to get legislators to understand the difference between industrial and human consumed cannabis, and the different nuances and necessary items for each to grow and so forth. And they choose to remain ignorant and choose to not learn, because they just would rather lump it all together and be prohibitionists. We have a legislature that's over 80% Republican and House. As a Republican, I'm going to call them all rhinos, because they don't understand the meaning of small business or the meaning of less government or less intrusive government. And they're basically authoritarian jackoffs. And you can quote me on that. I'm pretty pissed off at them. 39 of the 40 senators and nearly all of the House of Representatives voted for the latest hemp bill. The latest hemp bill basically takes away the rights of mom and pops to produce cannabinoids at any meaningful or commercial level, leaving it, of course, only for the people that have MMTCs to play in that particular market. It went after the cannabinoids with a sledgehammer instead of a scalpel, and even considered things like THCV the same as THCA, because that's how educated they are, and made no attempt to differentiate between the synthetic market that they were claimed that they were mad at and going after. And ironically, when it was all said and done, ended up passing THC in small controlled volumes. You can make 0.5 milligram THCs up to 50 milligram packages. Any cannabinoid, basically, as long as it's done in a natural way, or you're using out-of-state processors to do so. It basically cut the knees of the mom and pops within the state, and help the national, what I call, flash bang, overnight sensation and the cannabis industry, which is all the synthetics that aren't really regulated well, that are using chemicals that people are getting sick off of, and some people are dying, but the legislature claimed that they were going after those people, and actually they opened the door for those people and shut the door for the legitimate folks that wanted to provide real medicine and real products for real patients. So it's very politics as usual in terms of creating the plant and then the law around it. Unfortunately,
in terms of the medical market,
so
how many people in Florida have a medical marijuana permit? Do you know?
I'd have to check. Last time I looked, it was to the 700,000s. I work the need for these further licenses, because that's how they determine for every so many patients added to the registration, they open up another license. That's basically how the state of Florida works it. So last I checked, it was somewhere around 700,000, high in the 700,000s. And I have to be honest, I'm not, when it comes to policy and exact laws on medical cannabis or recreational cannabis, I have not been focusing on that because I have plenty of colleagues that do. And I come in to help them when they ask me to. I focus on the industrial side of things and trying to develop the industrial part. I'm a board member of an organization called Florida Cannabis Action Network, or Florida CAN. There's cannabis action networks all over the country, but we have been in existence we just celebrated our 25th year anniversary, and we've been doing a lot of work here in Florida. We always have controversy and a boulder to push here. So some amazing folks that are very, very attentive to what's going on in the medical side and what's coming down on the rec side. So we have another constitutional ballot initiative, Florida Constitutional Ballot Initiative, which is the same way that we got our medical program. We're going for 60% vote to allow recreational. And my organization, Florida Cannabis Action Network, is supporting that along with a lot of other organizations in the state. Me personally, I'm not. So I think it's I don't think it's a good move because it doesn't allow for home grow, and in fact, if we end up with a constitutional amendment that doesn't allow for home grow, we're going to have a harder time getting it in the future. So that's the main reason why I'm not for it. And of course, it's.
I live in Oregon, right across the river from Washington State. Back in 2012, Washington, Colorado, and Oregon all voted to legalize recreational cannabis. We lost here in Oregon. I spearheaded that campaign and was a spokesperson for it. But we came back in 2014 and got it. But Washington State was one of the first states in 2012 to legalize the recreational market, and they did not allow for home grow. And every year since 2013, they've tried to implement home grow, but they still don't have it. The only way you can home grow in Washington State is with a medical marijuana permit. And so it's a slippery slope, in terms of once you get what you get, that's what you've got, and it's going to be really hard to change it.
I agree with you, and that's my personal position, but I'm a member of a board that is many, and the board voted the board voted that they are going to support this. So I'll nation's effort as a board member and as an organization. But me personally, I would rather it be done legislatively and with the same laws as growing tomatoes. If I can grow a tomato at home, I should be able to grow my plants at home, because myself, I'm a big proponent of juicing. You just said slippery slope. In August of 22, I slipped down a 3-foot slippery slope in my backyard and shattered my tibia and fibula. And I'm facing a third surgery in May, bone graft surgery, because I still have a non-union fracture. So, I have some real medical needs for being able to grow at home. And if I didn't have a research permit and a nursery license on top of that to skirt the existing laws, I'd be breaking the law, and that's people shouldn't have to do that. You shouldn't have to break the law to take care of yourself. I see it as a Second Amendment argument. Actually, I don't see the Second Amendment as my right to own guns. I see it as my right to bear arms, or my right to self-defense. And self-defense is inclusive of a medical self-defense. And if I'm going to ward off all of the ailments and attacks on my body from this world, from all of the different stuff, then I need a weapon to do that. And my weapon of choice is a strong and healthy endocannabinoid system. And that endocannabinoid system is supported by supplementing it from growing and imbibing my plants, just like George Washington did. I think it's anti-American and against my Second Amendment that my government's not allowing me to do that.
Well, I agree. So let me ask you this. Have you got a medical permit?
Yes. Yeah, I'm a patient.
Does that allow you to grow THC varieties, no home grow, even with medical there?
Nope. And I'm not growing THC varieties. I'm growing hemp varieties.
Right.
Yep.
And you have a permit for that.
Yep.
So what's the next step in terms of building out and getting your research for hemp for water to the next level?
The next step is to find a corporate partner that's ready to bring on somebody that they can say, hey, this is our 501c3 partner, and we're going up and cleaning the waters in Florida, in Oregon, in Michigan, wherever, something like that, or getting funding from a government project, a city, state, a county project, or we do have some opportunities for actual investment into the 501c3, but that's a hard pill to swallow for a lot of people that are trying to make money off of investing their money. They don't usually want to invest in the structure of the 501c3. But if you are a philanthropist and you want to do that, or you just want a really killer tax write-off, we are looking for those large donations. Get into a project. I can do a project on my own. Let me rephrase that. I can do a project on my own if I can get $100,000 to $200,000 in funding.
Well, we wish you the best. If somebody wants to reach out and let's have you give your contact information one more time.
Sure. It's www.hemp4water.org, HEMP, the numeral 4, WATER.org. Steve at hemp4water.org is my email. And my phone number, which is the best way to reach me, is 407-701-9045.
Is there anything you want to say in closing, Steve?
Other than thank you so much for the opportunity, Paul. This has been an absolute pleasure. It's been an honor to speak with you. I'd love to actually meet up with you one day and have several hours that we can exchange stories and get to know some of the background a little bit more, because I am a big fan of everything that you've done over the years, and I appreciate your work very much so. So thank you.
You're very welcome, Steve. Thanks for coming on, and just keep working, as I know you are, diligently to restore hemp.
Absolutely. Absolutely. They don't call me Steve for nothing. You have a great day. Thanks very much. Bye-bye.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Because we're in a situation, we're in a dimensional reality now where you got to pretty much improvise as we go along, and to really be able to effectively improvise as we go along, we need to be able to do it with respecting the clarity, respecting our intelligence, We need to be able to do it with clarity, because they're fucking with our minds. They're mind fucking us so that we can't see. We don't know anymore. So everybody's just afraid. That's it. That's reality. Reality is fear. And everybody's being mind fucked through that fear. So and so everybody's going around reactionary behavior patterns that really are the same thing that's going on, but they've convinced themselves they're doing something different. Am I making sense? Yeah. All right. So if there's going to be any real change, right, we got to understand to respect our intelligence. See, and we need, it's very important. It's very, very important that we learn how to like ourselves. This is the most important thing of all. Because see, if you don't like yourself, then what the fuck good you going to do for the rest of the world when it really comes down? Because I don't like myself. No offense meant. But see, that's what I mean. We need to think, because there's too much muddled going on here that's getting in the way of us having the lives that we are entitled to. And especially with what's coming. See, not my generation, I'm of the generation, we're booking, we're going, you know. We get to go on and do the rest of our stuff. But with what's coming here, it's very important that we need to understand, to like ourselves, to respect our intelligence. Because we can talk spirituality all we want. We can talk good guy stuff all we want. But if we don't like ourselves, what does it mean? I mean, seriously. Seriously. And now, back to the part about liking ourselves. See, and to me, don't like ourselves. See, if we're full of fear, doubt, and insecurity, we just think we're fucked up, you know, then that means we don't like ourselves. But what my point is, if you look at reality with clarity, somebody put that in our mind. See, somebody said it to us. Somebody told it to us. We didn't think that up ourselves. Am I making sense? All right? See, so, and it's very important for us to understand that. Somebody that wanted to control us and feed off of us put this fear. See, and the fear starts with, we don't like ourselves because we don't think we're good. However they put it in there, whatever version of that virus we carry. But our intelligence is the antibiotic. Anyway, whatever goes on, keep a clear mind. You know, because I mean, power is very power. Power comes from us and how we use a clear mind. Yeah, because I don't know. Sometimes I get confused because I am multidimensional sometimes, and I'm crazy, you know, and I don't trust any of you normal fuckers at all. No offense, but because you don't understand what power is. See? Power is in your heartbeat. All right, power is in your heartbeat. Power is in your heartbeat. It sends electrical energy, and your brain transmits electrical energy through what is called thought. That's power. All right? That's power. We are our own power. All right? This is, all the rest of it's whatever it is. All right? But power comes from us. Money is about authority, not power. Politics is about authority. Military is about authority. See, all these religion is all about authority. All right, but we believe. See, we don't think anyway. We've been programmed to believe that these things represent power, but in reality, they represent forms of authority. Power is an entirely different thing. See, but in the land of deceit, sleight of mind, and delusion, we get confused. Okay.